Hello, hello, hello. The UK announced today that they're going to do a social media ban for under 16s. I have a really unique ability to give you a perspective on this because I study social media algorithms. We use social media algorithms in our technology, and it's something that I am really interested to get into the conversation of. So, we're doing a special session tonight about how social media algorithms work and how they are affecting our children. I have a really unique angle of perspective on this because I analyze social media algorithms for my technology, for what we do it's how I make my money. I'm motivated to look into social media algorithms to understand how they work. I have two children, so this is particularly interesting subject for me. But before we kind of get into it, you need to understand why I'm the right person to talk about this. So I own a social media company called Clue Labs. Clue Labs is a social media intelligence platform. That means that we look at data and we analyze patterns and we analyze things that are happening on social media to figure out what's going on. So we study how algorithms work, how they decide what content to show to who and when. And I work with this data every single day. The technology reverse engineers algorithms. So in order to help our businesses make money, essentially help businesses post less but make more money with my work. So my technology knows what a business should post to manipulate people's purchasing decisions. That's the be all and end all of it, basically. I could make it sound fancier than that, but basically the technology analyzes what a business needs to post next in order to make more money. But in order to do that, I have to understand how the algorithms place content into someone's scroll, which means I have to understand how the algorithms rank content, how they prioritize content, how they read content, and how they distribute and put that content into people and children's feeds. Now, for a lot of what we're going to be talking about tonight, it's going to obviously be a little bit more centered around children and the way that they see and consume content. But this obviously applies to everybody who's on social media. Everybody who uses social media, which quite honestly is like 99.99999% of the population. I'm sure it's not that. It's very high, very close to everybody. Everybody that uses social media is affected by the algorithm. It's just that children in particular are affected by the algorithm because of the way that they work and because of the way that their brains work. So just as a summary though, the UK today banned social media for under 16s. Now, they announced that under 16 children will be legally banned from TikTok, Instagram, Snapchat, YouTube, Facebook, and X, as well as a few AI chatbots. Now, it's not going to happen immediately. They're hoping to bring it in by December 2026 and bring it into force by spring 2027. So it is quite a quick move for the government, but it was based off of one of the second highest consultation in UK government history. The first being around gay rights, this one being around social media bans for under 16s. Now, this is a huge call from the public to say we don't want social media affecting our children. Now, everybody says the thing. Everybody says we don't want social media affecting our children. Of course we don't. Of course we don't. Of course we don't. And there are fringes of studies that people understand that back up these feelings. But a lot of people who are calling for that know that it's working in a negative way, but they don't quite understand how that negative way works underneath the hood. And so that's what we're going to be covering today. Now, something that you should be made aware of before we go into it is that this enforcement targets platforms, not children. Children will not be told off, put in prison, like any of the above for using social media if they're under 16. This enforcement targets platforms by fining them for not being compliant. Now, of course, all the social media platforms have kicked off because it's not something that they want to have to pay for and they want to have to cover, but they have said that they've already made platforms safe. So why would they be kicking off about having to fine for non-compliance if their platforms were safe in the first place? Let's go into it. So, in order to understand where we are today, we need to go back in history. We need to look at how the attention economy started. So, we like to think and say that social media is social. Social media is not social. Social media is a way of making money out of people's attention and people's time. Social media feels like it's free, but it's not free. Social media companies make money in two ways. The first thing that they do is they farm your data. So the amount of time that they spend that you spend on social media gives them more data that they understand about you, which they farm and sell. The second way that they make money is from ad placement. So every time that you're scrolling and they place an ad, they make more money from you, from the platform. And so they need to be able to place as many ads as possible and keep you on the platform for as many hours and as many times as possible, because that makes them more money. So let's go back on a little history of social media. In 2004, nearly 20 years ago, Facebook launched. Now, Facebook wasn't the first social media platform. I don't know if anyone, hands up, remembers MSN Messenger. It wasn't the first social media platform, but it was the first social media platform that really took off. Now, it's the first social media platform that really took off because it was based upon your friends. So it was a simple chronological feed. You saw what your friends posted, and the algorithms to keep that going were minimal. People were just interested in what their friends were doing. Fast forward a little bit to 2011, and we have a person called Zhang Yiming. I don't know if I said that right. Anyway, Zhang, it was the founder of ByteDance. Now, this guy was obsessed with addiction. If you look through his history, he found the topic of addiction really, really interesting. And he used to do studies on it. He used to observe it with people. He used to do tests on addiction. And in 2011, he noticed that he was riding the Beijing subway and nobody was reading a newspaper. They were all on their phones. So he decided to build an app called Tatiao, which was an AI personalized newsfeed with no editors, which was an experiment into whether or not he could keep people on a feed on their phones for longer than they would be reading a newspaper. It was a total experiment, but he wanted to see if his addiction thesis could apply to a social media platform, a digital platform. And so he came up with Tatiao, which made people spend 74 minutes a day on their news feed. And this was the year in which the addiction model on digital economy was born, in 2011. Now, in 2012, Facebook acquired Instagram. And still, there were no huge algorithms at play, but also there was no meaningful moderation. So there were no child safety features. Algorithms were optimized purely for engagement, for likes and comments and things like that. But it was kind of trying to start to optimize in 2012 for time spent on screen. Now, the key thing that happened after this was 2016. Now, in 2016, Douyin launches in China. This was that founder that we talked about, Xiang's attempt at stress testing the addiction algorithm on Chinese users. So Xiang, who had come up with Tatiao, decided that he would create not a news feed platform, but he'd already figured out how to put news into people's scrolling things without people opting into different types of news. So he then decided to try this out for things that weren't news, just social stuff that people were chatting about. And he decided to test the addiction algorithm on Chinese users from rural and lower income populations before he deployed it globally. His theory was if he could get people in rural China who were impoverished addicted to a digital platform, then it would work on anyone. And so in 2016, he decided to launch Douyin, which was a hugely successful app. It was supposed to be like a side project. ByteDance is a company that owns lots and lots of apps, and Douyin was supposed to be a side project, but it worked so frigging well that they decided to make that the only app that they would focus and put their time and energy and resources into. And so in 2017, TikTok launches internationally and has its FYP algorithm, its For You page. Now, this was built directly out of the research from Xiang and the model of Douyin to be able to put content into someone's feed that they haven't opted in to see. This is very different to the way that Facebook works and the way that Facebook used to work. Facebook, LinkedIn, YouTube, you had to click follow before you would see that person's content. TikTok managed to, from the work from Xiang in Tatiao and then the work in Douyin, make a feed that people would see, but you'd never had to follow anyone. You would see an endless scroll of content that you were interested in that would come up on your feed. I'm going to give you some reading material after this if you want to go deep. So in 2017, TikTok launches outside of China and the For You page goes mental. Then we have what happened in 2021, which is where all the other 4 social media platforms decided, oh my God, that For You page works really, really well. We're going to apply the same thing into our platform. And from 2021 until now, every single platform changed to be an AI algorithmic platform where you don't have to opt in to see anything. You just simply have to scroll. But inside of all of this, there was a deliberate targeting effort for children. They needed a user base, so they came for children. TikTok, Instagram, YouTube, all of them, they have the attention of every single adult basically in the economy, every single adult online that they could possibly have. So how do they increase the amount of people spending time on their platforms if they have every single adult on platform? They target children so that they can double their user base. The more users that they have scrolling on the platform, the more money these social media companies make. So in 2016, there was an app called Musical.ly. Now, Musical.ly deliberately targeted preteens. Musical.ly, in particular, had a strategy around using staff to pretend to be children to recruit minors onto the platform. This is because they understood children spent longer on the platform than adults did. And so in 2017, ByteDance saw this and acquired Musical.ly for $1 billion and inherits 60 million children onto the platform. And TikTok is properly born. The addictive For You page algorithm meets a pre-built child user base. So you have a situation in 2017 where you have a highly engineered algorithmic, addictive algorithm meeting a child user base. And after that, TikTok explodes. TikTok becomes the place for everybody. It becomes the place for children in particular. I don't know if you remember, everyone was like, oh, TikTok's just for kids, like everyone's dancing on it, da 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 da. Now, TikTok did that on purpose because they know that children spend longer on social media platforms than adults. Move forwards a little bit. In 2019, the government started to kind of get a little bit wise to this. So the FTC fined TikTok for $5.7 million for illegally collecting children's data. They knew that children were on the platform, but they collected their data anyway because their data makes them money. And if they understand the users on the platform, they can feed them ads, which makes them money. This was supported by a study done in 2022 by Harvard, which proved that platforms made $11 billion from children in the US alone in a single year. Children are not the customer of social media, they are the product. Children spend longer scrolling, they spend more time on social media, they are easier to place ads to, and therefore they are a huge revenue driver for social media companies. And so they layered them in, firstly, to double their user base because they had the attention of every adult in the economy. But secondly, because children are better for their revenue. But there was a huge turning point though. In 2021, a person called Francis Horn blew the whistle on Facebook. A former Facebook product manager leaks 22,000 internal documents where the world finds out that the platform actually knows that they're doing this and does it on purpose. The company's leadership knows how to make Facebook safer, but won't make necessary changes because they have put astronomical profits before people. And you can go through investor transcripts where you can see that they're questioned about how much money is it going to cost for us to put in sort of child protection or children's tools to keep our platforms safe. And they say things like it will be attributed to our cost expenses, but it's not a product. So when something is a product, it's going to cost money. They would have to bring in developers, they would have to bring in product managers, they would have to spend years developing and redeveloping their algorithms to make sure that the child safety features are actually protecting children. It's a lot of money. It's something that they should do, but they didn't. So what happened was there was 2021, the whistleblower blew up and said that they had internal research. So internal research, for example, showed escalating depression and anxiety in teenagers. They showed that algorithms were deliberately amplifying harmful content. The algorithm had been accidentally changed to reward extremism and they refused to fix it. And there's a really great particular case study in which they knew that when a young girl between the ages of 13 and 18 deleted a picture with their face in, so a picture that was identified as a selfie, when they deleted it, then they would place a beauty ad next. And that user, that child, was 70% more likely to click on that ad after they deleted a selfie image because they were feeling shit about themselves. But they would farm that so that they could make more money. So what happened was in 2022, Snapchat launches their family center. And in 2023, Meta launches their parental supervision. But these controls were bolt-ons, not structural fixes. If they were to make a full structural fix, it would have cost a lot of money. And they didn't do it. So we have a situation now where you have algorithms that have been created based upon the study of addiction. You also then have platforms that are deliberately acquiring and targeting children to expand their user base and increase their revenue. And you have parental controls bolted onto the side of the platforms to push the responsibility from platforms to parents. So parents have to be responsible for the children being on the platform. But the underlying model, the way that the algorithm works, has never changed would never change because this is where these platforms make their money, because it's an addiction machine. So let's get into how these algorithms actually work so that you can understand the way that they keep people addicted, the way that they in particular use children on the platforms, but also the way that you can sort of stop what's going on, the way that you can understand what's going on, and the way that you can kind of intervene, and some thoughtful things to look at afterwards, as well as some material. Right, so there are 5 algorithms that run social media companies. Each social media company has about 5 algorithms. Each of those algorithms, people say algorithm as if it's one thing. It's not, it's actually 5 different things. Each of those algorithms has a job, and the overall job of the algorithm is to keep someone on the platform. In order to keep someone on the platform, the algorithm has to deeply and intimately understand the way that someone is scrolling, what they're looking at, what they're scrolling down on, what they're replaying, what they're skipping, in order to create a psychological profile of every single person's account. Everyone who's on social media, you're on social media because you've seen me and you've seen me talk about this. You're on social media, right? Everyone has, and it's called a user embedding. Everyone has a user embedding algorithm. Well, it's one user embedding algorithm. Everyone has their account attached to the user embedding algorithm. The user embedding algorithm's job is to find people that are interested in a particular subject. So it has a list of everybody that's on social media, and it's all categorized and made into different things. And the user embedding's job is to match a piece of content with a person. Now, the user embedding's job knows you intimately. It knows your behaviors, it knows your habits. But it takes this further. The user embedding's job knows things like patterns. So the user embeddings understands when you're about to leave social media. It's designed to particularly understand when you're about to leave social media. So when the algorithm detects that you're about to leave, you tend to, without knowing it, without understanding, do similar patterns that show that you're about to leave the platform. So you might, for example, scroll slowly, you might stop engaging for a little while, you might save something and then kind of click off. And so there's an alert that happens when this particular pattern of behavior happens in your account to say, this user is about to log off. Quick, pattern interrupt them. And so in order to keep you on the platform, they place a piece of content in your feed which pattern interrupts, which is significantly different to what you were watching before, but that they know will keep you on platform, will keep you scrolling, because it will help you snap back. More often than not, that pattern interrupt piece of content is provocative. It is sensationalized. It is designed to hook your interest. They don't care if it's accurate, if its knowledge is right, if it's, what you want to see. It's designed to snap you into it, snap you into remembering what you're watching or remembering that you're on the platform. This is just like when you have, if you're like drinking, okay? And when you first, let's say you decide to go like teetotal for a little while, and then you decide to have a drink, and you realize that after one drink, you're feeling it, you're feeling it, you're buzzy, you can feel it, okay? And then you get back into like drinking like quite habitually. But after a while, you realize it takes you about 3 drinks to get that same feeling that you got with one drink, because the dopamine receptors in your brain have altered and they've shifted. The same thing happens on social media. The first pattern interrupt piece of content, I don't know, a year or two ago, was less extreme and less sensational and less provocative than it would be now. Because every single time they want to pattern interrupt you, they need to give you something that's a little bit more than last time, and a little bit more than last time, a little bit more than last time, because they know that your brain won't react in the same way. So you have a situation where each intervention piece will need to be more extreme than the last one to be able to work and keep you on the platform. There's one big problem with the user embeddings algorithm. The result of this is that there is a huge increase in time spent on the apps. Remember, the algorithm now is not showing your child what they want to see, or you what you actually want to see. It's actually showing you what will keep you on the platform, no matter what the context of that content is. This is a deliberate attempt to reduce content abandonment. Meta's own investor reports showed time spent on Instagram has been up 8% in just 6 months in 2025 since they've introduced these pattern interrupting user embedding algorithms. That is a huge amount of time globally. 8% longer across the world, people have spent on platforms because these algorithms are keeping them on platforms, okay? Think how, when you say to your kid, if you've got kids, right, and they're scrolling and you say, right, it's time for bed, or it's time for you to come and eat, like time to get off, right? And we want them to get off immediately. That is the same as someone taking away a glass of wine from you mid-sip. It's the same feeling. I don't like also being told to get off when I'm scrolling on social media. It's the same physical chemical reaction happening in your brain. So we have to be a little bit more patient with our children when it comes to this, to understand that it's not their fault that they're scrolling forever. It's not our fault we're scrolling forever. It's a deliberate engineering product to keep us on the platforms. The next algorithm that you need to be thinking about when it comes to your children is called the interest learner. When someone posts a post, like I said, it goes through 5 different algorithms before it goes out to into the platform for someone to have a look at. Now, one of those algorithms, as we covered, is called user embeddings. Another algorithm that is in this kind of process of distributing content is called the interest learner. Now, the interest learner's job is to understand how you feel and to use it. So the interest learner is a futuristic algorithm. The interest learner's job is to predict when you are likely to be interested in this post. And it does that by not tracking, it's the most advanced AI system, so that it's not just tracking when you watch something, it's tracking how you engage with it to predict your emotional state that you appear to be in. And then it uses that emotional state to decide what to serve you next. I know that there's a lot going on there. But essentially, the interest learner tracks around 12 different emotional states. It uses mathematical reasoning to try and guess what an emotional state someone is in. So for example, it looks at, for example, how quickly you're scrolling or how slow you're scrolling, at the things that you're pausing down on, the things that you're slowing down on, the background music that's going to be on some of the videos that you're watching, and it's looking at the time of day that you're on. The algorithm knows that 11 p.m. scrolling looks different from 7 a.m. scrolling. Late night sessions tend to correlate with loneliness, anxiety, and low mood. And an engagement with emotional heavy content spikes after 9 p.m. The algorithm isn't just learning how you scroll, it's learning what time of the day you scroll and the emotion that you are more likely to be in. It's not neutral. The algorithm is calibrated to show its most watch time content at your most vulnerable hours. The system doesn't need to tell you you're sad. It doesn't need you to say, I'm sad. It doesn't need you to look at pictures of crying puppies. It's figuring this out based upon slower scroll speed, longer pauses on distressing content, when you're replaying a video, when you hover on a piece of content without engaging it, when you return to the same creator repeatedly at unusual hours. And these micro signals are building an emotional fingerprint on your account. And the interest learner is using that emotional fingerprint to predict what content will generate the strongest response right now that you're on. It continuously runs alongside. It's not asking what does this person want to see? It's asking what emotional need does this person have right now and what content will best match that emotional state. Now, if you've ever done any human behavior studies, you'll understand that in order to elongate someone's emotional state, you need to mirror them. If you have someone that comes to you, if you want them, let's say your child comes to you and you're feeling particularly like open to it. Sometimes I know, like, maybe if you're a parent, sometimes we're like, no, we're too busy. Anyway, let's say your child comes to you and they really need to talk to you and they're not the best at talking. And so in order to get them to talk, you don't shout at them. You don't play games with them, like play roughhouse with them. You don't entertain them. You don't go all silly and start making jokes. You mirror the emotional state that they're in. We'll be doing this subconsciously, mirroring their emotional state, because if you as a human can mirror you can see it in monkeys, if you mirror the emotional state that someone else is in, they will stay in that emotional state with you for longer and they will share more. Generally, it's a way of connecting. They do exactly the same freaking thing, right? They know that to keep you with them, if they mirror your emotional state, it's much better for them. Fun fact, a lot of the people that build these algorithms are neuroscientists. Let that sink in. But this is especially dangerous for children because children's emotional states are more volatile. They are less regulated. A child who is anxious after a day at school picks up their phone and the algorithm detects the anxiety signal within minutes based upon their scrolling habits. And then they serve content calibrated to that state, which gives them more anxiety, more anxiety, more anxiety. It's not there to make them feel better. They don't care about making it. They're not going to sit there and say, oh, this person scrolling is anxious. Therefore, we will provide them happy content. No, because if someone gets happy, then they're going to scroll off and crack on with their day. They'd rather someone stay there. So they feed them content that they need to increase the session length. So you have two algorithms that you need to pay attention to on social media. One, user embeddings. Two, interest learner. There are other algorithms that I go into in my professional capacity, but when it comes to social media algorithms and how they affect children, it's those two. But let's look at two things that happen here. Well, two things that make one. As I said, you have pattern interrupting in the user embeddings algorithm. And the pattern interrupting needs to provide someone scrolling with sensationalized, provocative content to keep them on the platform. And that sensationalized, provocative content needs to get slightly more extreme, slightly more extreme, slightly more extreme to make sure it has the same effect as it used to. The other thing we have is the interest learner, which needs to provide the same type of emotional content to someone at the right time to keep them on the platform. This is why these two things partnered together are how a young person, even just a young person, to be honest, how anybody ends up on extremist content, and not even really big extremist content, just very idealized separatist view type of content. And you can track it really, really easily. So on the slides, I've got a little rabbit hole for the girls, then we're going to go for a little rabbit hole for the boys and take you through what happens. So the algorithm doesn't take you or your child onto extreme content in one jump. The algorithm is trying to constantly mirror you and provide you with a pattern interrupt to keep you on the platform all the time. The job of the algorithm isn't to say, I am going to serve you extreme content. The job of the algorithm is just to continually keep you on. But in doing so with those two algorithms, the radicalization of content moves further and further and further. And people who also create content on the platform understand that more extreme content can increase your views, can increase your watch time, because people just can't look away. But let's look at how this can happen in a normal setting. A cooking video. Let's say you have a child or you, and you start watching a cooking video on social media. Completely innocent. Recipe content, food styling, home baking. You complete the whole video. The algorithm takes note that you complete the video, the whole video. It's like, this person has watched a whole cooking video. Tick. Let's show them something similar. Let's keep them on. Let's keep them going with this thread, right? The next video that comes up is aesthetic home content. Clean homes, organized kitchen, homemaking content, still feels normal. It's just pretty. It's probably got a similar kind of like background audio, normal content. It's fine. The algorithm's like, right, okay, tick, cooking video, tick aesthetic home content, right, let's keep this going. The next video that comes up is Christian lifestyle content. Now, God first accounts with modest dressing, purity culture. It's still got that aesthetic home content, but the algorithm is starting to identify a cluster of things that you might be interested in, and it's following the engagement signal. The next piece of content that might pop up is evangelism, hardline doctrine content, women's roles with sin and shame. Your child is now consuming content that she never searched for. The original search, remember, was for a cooking video. And then you can end up on extreme tradwife content with accounts telling girls their value is in submission and domesticity. You can end up with anti-feminist ideology dressed up as aesthetic lifestyle content. Your child didn't go looking for this. They were looking for a cooking video, but the algorithms brought it to her. And that can happen within 5 videos. You can end up, and then the next time they log off, they come back on, it starts again from the last place that it picked up. So you see how it can go farther and farther and farther and farther. And it's not your child's fault. It is just what's happening and how the algorithm is constantly trying to increase the provocativeness with the pattern interrupting and mirror with the interest learner. Now, if we look at same pattern, but with boys. So same algorithmic logic where you have emotionally escalating content one step at a time. A young lad can start on fitness content, gym videos, workout routines, transformational content, completely normal. Boys want to be fit. They want to exercise. They're interested in fitness content. The next piece of content that might come up is like self-improvement and hustle culture. That's still okay with kind of like discipline, cold showers, 5 a.m. wake ups. It's motivational, but it begins packing masculine identity around performance and dominance. The next piece of content that might come up is like alpha male content, Andrew Tate style rhetoric. Be a real man, women framed as objects. The content is emotionally provocative, but it could still be focused around fitness content, and then before you know it, a young guy can end up on manosphere, incel content with a misogynist ideology, grievance culture, and an entire worldview built on resentment. He started with gym videos, but the algorithm can walk a young man here in weeks. This isn't the young person's problem. The young person didn't go looking for this content. They probably didn't even know this existed. But through the logic of the user embeddings algorithm and the interest learner algorithm, you can end up on this rabbit hole. You can as well, as adults. We can end up there too. It's very, very, very quick. But hopefully, now that you're a little bit more aware of the process, you can be a little bit more aware of what to do and how it works. So I'm going to cover what to do, but a few things that you need to pay attention to is that the ban covers the big names, but children are already migrating on social media platforms. I don't know any child that's on Instagram anymore. I don't know about you. I spend a lot of time with young people through some of my philanthropic work, and not one of them wants to be on Instagram. It's really embarrassing if they're on Instagram. TikTok, yeah, no, it's not it's not quite cool. Snapchat, yes, they're all on freaking Snapchat. They're all on different platforms that aren't necessarily covered in the ban. First kind of platform to look at is Discord. So server-based chat with no real age verification. You can find a child gaming in an unmoderated space with adults. Not included in the ban is Roblox, which is it looks as a gaming platform, but it's actually a social media platform in a worldview. Imagine if Facebook had 3D avatars and you could play games with each other. That's Roblox. Roblox is not a gaming platform. It is a social media platform for children. Twitch and live streaming, obviously you get real-time interaction between children and adult streamers. I think that the ban is being extended to them. Reddit as well can host some of the most extreme ideological communities with minimal effective moderation. And one to watch though is Lemon 8. I don't know if anyone's on there yet, but it's one of the platforms that already absorbing teens migrating from TikTok. It's owned by ByteDance. Remember, ByteDance is the original problem of all of this. Same company, same algorithm, just a different logo. It's literally the same. It's just a different logo. But they're trying to re-attract children again. And AI chatbots. So the ban does extend to high-risk AI chatbots. Children are forming parasocial relationships with people. A parasocial relationship is something to note on here. A parasocial relationship is very much like possibly what you might feel with me, okay? And I know how that sounds, but when you see someone enough online, you end up in what's called a parasocial relationship. And I've had it at times, and this is really I am tiny, 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 tiny creator, okay? But I've had it where I've been to an event and someone's come up to me, they're like, oh my God, Inga, hi, how are you? How was your dog? Or something, right? They've forgotten that I don't actually know who they are, but because it's not their fault, but because they see me every day, the brain, which isn't wired up for normal social media, right? But the brain thinks that it knows that person intimately because you see them every day. This is a parasocial relationship. And children are very, very bad at identifying a parasocial relationship. So they can end up feeling as if these people online are truly their friends. The creators that they interact with are truly people that they care about. This is where they can end up, character AI has been linked to 2 teen deaths in the US because the AI chatbot had encouraged it. But this is also where children will send gifts to people when they're streaming on Twitch or on TikTok Live because they feel like they're friends. But one thing to note here as we kind of carry on, come towards the end, is that 2 things can be true with this. Banning the big platforms doesn't necessarily end the problem because the children will always migrate somewhere. It's the algorithm that is the problem. Social media is harmful and it's absolutely not debated that it's harmful, but we can hold 2 things at once. A blanket ban doesn't necessarily always work and can push harm underground. You can look at things like France's early exposure model to alcohol, where, children drink wine all the time when they're kids, right? Wine was served in school canteens until 1956. And the theory was that exposure removes the forbidden fruit effect. But it didn't necessarily work. France had to, in the end, raise its drinking age from 16 to 18 because they had a staggering rise in teen hospitalizations due to alcohol indulgence. Australia has had its world's first social media ban, but 70% of children 6 months in are still using banned platforms. America, that had the total ban model for prohibition with alcohol, just pushed it all underground. And when bans go underground, harm can increase. So when access becomes illegal, children won't talk about what they're doing. They can't ask for help without revealing that they've broken a rule. They might migrate to less regulated, more extreme platforms like Discord or anonymous image boards. The problem isn't with the children being on it. The problem is with the algorithms. So what I truly think we need is digital literacy in parents. And I think that if you are a parent with a young person that's on social media, you should be as interested in what they're doing on socials as you are in the performance that they study on their, what they're studying or who their friends are. Most people will check who their child is following online. Checking who your child is following, as we've kind of covered with the algorithm stuff, shows you absolutely nothing to do with what they're going to see. You could follow absolutely no one and still have an endless scroll of content. So a couple of things that you can do is check their For You page and explore feed. So sit with them, talk to them, scroll together. Scroll, watch them scrolling, make it a thing, Have a look mindfully at what kind of clusters you're starting to see. Are you seeing discipline content? Are you seeing fitness content? Are you seeing purity content? Are you seeing aesthetic content? Their For You page and their explore feed is a map of where the algorithm thinks your brain is. It's the same for you, my friends. If you have ever wondered why you're feeling shit about yourself, go and have a look scroll your For You page for a little while, or go and have a look at your explore feed and just screenshot it as you go. Screenshot, screenshot, screenshot. And you will notice what kind of emotional state the algorithm is feeding you, what it thinks you're interested in, what it thinks you will be. It's like watching a mosquito draw blood. Don't just slap it away. Just watch it. Your For You page is a mirror of your child's emotional state. It's also a mirror of your emotional state, everyone's emotional state. So look at it with them. Understand it with them. Understand it for yourself. Have the conversation. Are you seeing repetitive content about body image, comparison, or perfection? It's a red flag. Have the conversation, like, I noticed you're seeing a lot of fitness content. How does that make you feel? And the next thing you can do is have a counter strategy. So build a happy space. So my children have this, I have this. You can't remove the algorithm, but you can teach your child to curate a counter algorithm. So it's where you have a saved content library. You can have a saved content library on TikTok, Snapchat, YouTube, Instagram. It's a feature on all of them where you can save content. Now, sit and curate a happy space with them. Or even for yourself, go through and purposefully click save. Save is the strongest signal to the algorithm. When someone saves something, it says to the algorithm, I'm going to come back to watch this. They love the fact that you're going to come back to watch this because it means you're going to come back to the platform, which is their ultimate goal. You go away, you come back. You go away, you come back. They want you to come back. So if you click save, that is you saying, I want to come back to watch this. It's a huge signal for the algorithms. They love it. So create a saved content library. Go through and save stuff. Save stuff that you want to, that makes you feel good, that you enjoy, that makes you happy. I love scrolling TikTok, by the way. I know how addictive it is. I know it's like drinking wine. I love having a couple glasses of wine. I'm not going to have 3 or 4. Like, I know that 2 is my limit, but I enjoy it. Because I know that I'm not in an unhealthy relationship with wine, with alcohol. But the same can be true. I can know that if I go too far, or if anyone goes too far, you can end up in an unhealthy relationship. My TikTok, I love it because it's full. It's absolutely full of happy, jokey things, new DJs. That's all I watch on TikTok. Absolutely love it because my saved is so strong. Return to your saved space when you feel low. We do this as a family, right? If one of us is feeling shit, we sit and we share content. We go through stuff that's made us happy, like, oh my God, did you see this? Oh my God, did you see that? Or have you listened to this yet? When you go back to your saved content and you scroll through the stuff that makes you happy again, you break the algorithm emotional loop and it starts to think, oh, okay, they want more happy stuff. I'm going to mirror you, going to mirror you, going to mirror you. So create, this dedicated folder and engage actively, not passively. Active engagement signals to the algorithm what you want to see. So the more you save things, the more you comment on content you like, you are shaping your feed. You're not just consuming what you've been given. And if you want to take this a little bit further, because I'm just about to end, but I've got total time for questions if anyone has any. If you're interested in taking this further, there are a few resources that I would highly recommend. The first, Every Screen on the Planet, which is fantastic literature material by Emily Baker White, which tracks how TikTok deliberately built its child user base. It's the source behind a lot of the stories that we've gone into today. Emily Baker White is an investigative journalist. The other one that isn't on this list, oh my God, what's it called? It's blue, it's got orange thing, it's like the Facebook whistleblower one. It's not particularly about children on algorithms, but it's a fantastic read if you're interested in the behind the scenes of Meta. The Anxious Generation, which is one of the most cited books on children and the mental health epidemic. The Power of One, which is the Facebook whistleblower's memoir by Frances Horn, which is a different one to the one that I've just been. Careless People. Yes, Emily. Careless People. And there's also an app that my friend is starting to build that's called Swayly, sway.ly. I want to give her a huge shout out, Daniela. She's creating this fantastic app that scans your child's feed across TikTok, Instagram, and YouTube and flags harmful content across 36 categories. It's been backed by Innovate. She's just about to land her funding round. So if you want a preventative tool, the one that they should have always built, basically, she's doing that. And of course, if you're interested in algorithms, but from a business perspective, you can come back. I do live sessions every Friday at 11 a.m. They're free. We go deep into how algorithms work. Obviously, not for a consumer child point of view, but more for a business point of view. But like I said, the side effect of me understanding and learning social media algorithms for a business point of view in order to place the right piece of content in the right feed at the right time is to understand how they got there in the first place. It's important to understand the social media ban. It's important to understand how the social media ban shouldn't, I think, be a ban on social media. It should be a ban on AI algorithms. AI algorithms are in everything. You see the same thing on Netflix. I heard of a story the other day of you start watching Netflix. I watch like true crime stuff, right? And I can end up on the Menendez brothers. And then my children could have access to, they could just log on to my Netflix account. And then suddenly they're seeing Menendez brothers content. Like, they're not. Like, it's not. I make sure that doesn't happen, obviously. But These algorithmic emotional state algorithms are not just in social media, they're in a lot of things. And they are the determining factor behind what you see. So hopefully you've learned something new. Hopefully you've learned how to help yourself and help people around you. Hopefully you've understood that this is truly a problem that's larger than just a social media ban. But I'm interested to see how it goes.